Hello again, everybody. My name is John D Healy. I do a podcast called It's Good to Talk. People know me because I produced this book for Tony McGurn, and that's how it all started. Buy it on Amazon. Also on audio, you'll get that if you email me. My sponsor, Sir Liffey Van Lines Moving Company here in New York, about 50 years old, be converted this year. Now, you'll remember a few weeks back, I did two parts on Mother Hubbards, which is a restaurant I used to own in Ireland between 1990 and 95 on the main Dublin Galway Road. So I'll follow on from that because the first two parts of that explained digging out the foundation and dealing with purchase of land to make the site bigger and so on and so forth and to enhance it and get the car park ready for Charm Academy and all that. So what else was there? Well, I remember telling you that I had my own garden adjacent to the restaurant because I enjoyed gardening. As a matter of fact, when I went to high school in Mayo, I used to enter a gardening competition sponsored by high school. And every year I would get third place. Not too bad, like the Croatian team in World Cup soccer. Well, other unique things we had in the restaurant, we gave our customers a choice of loose tea or tea bags. Loose tea is not too common, I guess, but some customers like that traditional part of the restaurant choice of menu. Thing with loose tea is you have ends up with a lot of loose tea leaves when the teapot comes back, and we tip them into the bucket, and we recycle it, use it for compost for the garden. Very good composting material is tea leaves, tea bags, and indeed coffee. The leftover from the coffee beans, very good for the garden. So I used to grow lettuce and tomatoes, parsley, mint, big favourite mint. So the garden was instrumental in helping me get on television into cookery books, Eat Your Greens by Sophie Greeks, and I think I mentioned that on the last podcast. And that got me onto television, Channel 4, documentaries about food and recipes and so forth. That also got me onto other TV programs like doing sampling on shows like this, Potluck, Ready Steady Cook, and those are very popular back in the day. So what else was going on in the whole marketing world? Well, I was big on cleaning routines and being ahead of the game. So I would have lists of whole cleaning schedules for the staff to tick off every single night, and indeed the toilets was every single hour. Various staff would check to make sure that there was sufficient supplies for the choice of hand dryer, hand towel, hand paper. So because we had a lot of turnover, there was a lot of people going through the restaurant, and we had the disabled toilet. I've mentioned that the last time, and that brought me to the Wheelchair Association, which was one of the charities that I was a big sponsor of as a volunteer. Now, the other marketing stuff that I did back then was one of my customers used to come in. He was a truck driver, and he drove a big truck, and it had no signage on it at all. And his name was John Hendy. I said to him one day, I said, who do you drive for? He said, I'm an independent driver. I deliver this product, Taytos. I said, really? Said, yeah. He said, all over the country. My routes are Dublin to Galway, Dublin to Castlebar, Dublin to Donegal, Dublin to Limerick, and obviously back again, and obviously 4 or 5 times a week. So I said, you have no signage on it? And he said, no. I said, let me think about this. So I made him a deal. I said, I want to put my signage on your truck. I'm going to pay for all the signage, of course. I'm going to pay you X amount per year. And you can have breakfast free here every morning, each year, while our agreement holds. And he was delighted, because I think he used to have an eye for one of my waitresses. Maybe that helped a deal too. So I got my graphic design guy, David May, at the time, to do a simple design, red and green, that's where I'm from in Mayo, colours from the football team. And we just did kind of an angle, red and green, a stripe, and we used a stop sign on the back, like this guy here, stop, don't pass, Mother Hubbards. You know the stop sign is octagon, 8-sided stop sign, international, worldwide, also stop. So that was put on the back of the truck. So if you were stuck in traffic behind this truck, you have to read Mother Hubbards don't pass. Pretty clever, I think, too. So a few years went by, and I was a member of the Marketing Institute of Ireland, pretty elite organisation for business professionals like myself at the time. And I'm there one night for a black tie event, and I'm looking at the list of attendees, and I'm going down the list, and I see, oh my God, the CEO of Tayto Ireland, this guy is there. Not Mr. Tayto, but the real Mr. Tayto. I didn't know him and he didn't know me, but he obviously asked somebody in the group. I think there was maybe about 70 people, black tie hair. And I see this little man walking over to me with a very stern face. He said to me, he said, "You are the fucker." I said, "Excuse me? What you say to me?" He said, "You're the fucker." I said, "Well, what do you mean?" He said, "You're the guy that put the advertising on the truck." I said, "Yes, that's me." Because I don't lie. My father told me, never lie. Shame the devil, tell the truth. I said, "Yeah, I put the advertising on it." He said, "Well," I said, "Well, there was no advertising on it." And I asked the owner of the truck, "Could I put my," and he said, "Yeah, we made a deal." And he shook my hand. He said, "You know what? You're clever." He said, "We should have done that." I said, "Okay." And incidentally, Tayto cleaned their act shortly up after that and went big and huge into marketing and their branding and so on and so forth. And I actually liked the product. And if he's listening, thank you very much. And I'm glad that Tayto is doing well. And you'll be happy to know I still am a customer of Tayto's. So that was my Tayto story. Let me see where I move on to from there. Well, then I guess I move on to sponsorship and so on and so forth. And yeah, there was lots of promotional products in the restaurant for sale. Like I was big into branding. I did a podcast here with Tom Sanchez, United Print Group in Queens, branding products. Everything from clocks and pens and even placemats. Placemats were kind of cute because aerial photography was kind of a new thing in Ireland. Then what's aerial photography? Someone has a Cessna plane, single engine plane, and they drive all over Ireland and they just take an aerial photograph of your house or your land or your property, and then they try and sell you placemats. Very clever. So I got placemats made. Again, my friend David May, graphic design, he was very much involved in that. So we took some nice aerial shots of the restaurant and they were placemats. And people like to buy them as souvenirs. Mugs, coffee mugs. I did a huge promotion there with, I think, on a couple of occasions, like 20,000 mugs. That's a lot of mugs. And I was well able to do one time with Pat the Baker, who was my bread supplier. We got Pat the Baker to sponsor one side of the mug, and I took the other side because, a mug is round, two sides. Of course, my friends told me that when you held up the mug, Pat the Baker was on the inside and Mother Hubbards was on the outside. I didn't really intend it that way, but it worked out. My other supplier was O'Hara's Bakery in Foxford in Mayo, and we used to buy pastries off them and cakes and so on and so forth. That was balanced between Pat the Baker. Pat the Baker was in Longford, and his trucks would be running up and down to Dublin 6-7 times a day. But bread supply was always fresh, and O'Hara's were high-end confectionery, of course. And I did some marketing stuff with O'Hara's as well. We sponsored a pancake night for a charity event for Rehab Mayo. And I'll get to Rehab as well now in a second. Rehab Mayo, they do a lot of good work for charities, deal with handicapped people and so on and so forth. And Kevin Burke is someone that you just couldn't refuse. And Kevin would come for sponsorship and run events as well. And then I'd be invited to events and so forth. So let me see where I am before I move on. The travel, I guess, yeah. Now, talking of menu, I'll talk about menu for a second. Certain things on my menu and certain things weren't on the menu. I got away from doing burgers because I figured children are going to be expecting a McDonald's burger and now they're going to get a steak burger and blah, blah, blah. So I avoided the burger thing completely and did a separate kind of kids menu at the time. Probably stuff like chicken nuggets and chicken fingers and basic stuff, Now, from the trucker's point of view, back then in the day, the mixed grill was a big deal for some greasy spoon outlet. And that meant like 2 eggs, 2 sausages, 2 rashers, a lamb chop, and 2 pieces of pudding. But to me, that's too many ingredients for the chef to be making for one dish. And if you think I have high volume customers coming through and something is missing or something is off, forget about it. So I came up with a trucker special, which was basically a sirloin steak with veg and mashed potato, I guess, or baked potato, or fries. But it started with a soup or a salad. The soup was always homemade, and the salad was always chilled in the fridge. So as soon as the guy would order, his starter was right in front of him immediately. Time is important to truck drivers, and this I know from Liffey too. time is of the essence. So the guy has his soup, he has his starter, and now his steak is cooked to order. So he's getting solid, fresh meal, choice of dessert. Well, desserts are important too. And this is where I wanted to win the children back, by the way. I came up with novelty, well, I didn't come up, they've been around forever. Novelty desserts like a banana boat is a sliced banana, 3 scoops ice cream, topped with some fruit, could be pineapple, could be mixed fruit, whatever, and some whipped cream. Delicious. Now, the Knickerbocker Glory is in a different glass, but basically it's the same recipe, just in a tall glass with a long spoon. And kids adore these things. And believe me, kids do have an influence on their parents, fortunately or unfortunately. But the kids would drag the parents in, or vice versa. So that was the 2 things I want to mention there. We did have fresh orange juice, and we did make fresh carrot juice. And the pulp from the carrot juice would go to the kitchen to the chef and be used in the soup. In a restaurant, there really shouldn't be much waste, little or no waste whatsoever in the kitchen if it's managed well. I think on the last podcast I mentioned about myself working at the dishwashing section for a number of months. And if too much food is coming back, there's a problem. Definitely, you need to be looking at the chef, talking to the chef, seeing why. That's called portion control. So something is wrong. And don't be like a bad show band, turn the volume up when the music is crappy. No, get the quality right, get the quantity right, and get it out there and make it healthy food, not fast food, okay? So that's it on the menu on the food thing. And now back to some more being involved in the community like I was, and sponsorship is important, and being involved in things happening in the community, okay? So one of the ones I got involved this time, a senator used to come in that used to go to the parliament 3 or 4 times a week, and he was from Connemara, the Gaeltacht, and he was very involved in a college for all Irish speaking students, and his goal was to get more students to come from all over Ireland to attend the school, in the summertime and get a scholarship and that. So I sponsored 10 of those scholarships actually, and it was in January '94, I think. And I also was President Michael D. Higgins was my professor in Galway. I knew him, was familiar with him. So I made a phone call to his secretary to see would he stop by one evening at the restaurant and present the winners with what they were going to be awarded to go to college, right? So Michael D. Higgins, President of Ireland, he stopped by, as he did one evening. But he was very involved at that time in bringing in the movie Braveheart. So he was a Minister for Tourism then. So his mind was kind of focusing on that, I guess. So when he came into the restaurant to present the students that won the trips to the Gaeltacht, he spoke in Gaelic all the way through. But you must bear in mind, these students do not know how to speak Irish yet. They have to go to study Gaeilge and come back. But that was okay. We just let him go with it. We didn't nudge him and say, Michael D, they only speak English, yes. But he's that type of a character, very nice man, and very apt for the job, being the President of Ireland. And of course, when I got wind of him bringing Braveheart, I got involved in another charity called AWARE, which deals with people with severe depression and all that. And that was a big event, called it Daisy Princess, I guess in early Easter as well. So 2 of the actors from Braveheart, Brendan Gleeson and another guy, they were there to present a little girl called the little Daisy Princess, and her father was a Dublin footballer. Of course, that was done in Dublin at Stephen's Green. And the little princess, as a princess could happen, she was late. So they grabbed another little girl, and then they ended up with 2 princesses, which was fine too. It's all good publicity. And ironically, one of those students actually wrote me a letter. I don't know how I kept the letter, but I'll read it to you in any event. Let's see who this girl is. Her name is Siobhan McCabe, and she's from 131 Royvale Lawns in Leaks of Conquilare. She obviously didn't know my name. She says, Dear Sir, Madam, I was one of the lucky winners in the draw for the Gaeltacht Scholarship to Coláiste Dara by you recently. I would just like to thank you for giving me this opportunity to go to the Gaeltacht, and also for the nice T-shirt you gave us and the folder you gave us on the night. But I'm looking forward to going to the Gaeltacht in the summer. Many thanks to you, sincerely, Siobhan. I wonder where Siobhan stayed. Who knows? I don't do Facebook, but if you know her, tell her I hope she did well. I hope she speaks fluent Gaelic. So moving along, I guess we're moving on now to. I'm going to bring you on the journey, haven't I? I'm going to bring you on the traveling that I did with the Wheelchair Association. So every Easter, wheelchair group of myself, about 80 people, including myself, obviously, we would go to different countries to look at wheelchair access there and the awareness of ramps and facilities and so on and so forth. And some of the higher up people in the wheelchair organization would meet some of the locals to see what's going on in different places. So in 1992, we went to Moscow, and that was the same year that McDonald's opened there. And there was about 80 of us in the group. A lot of people in wheelchairs and some not, because we're all volunteers. And we fundraise all year to make the trip and pay for the trip and pay our way and then do what we do. And then it's like a sponsored walk. So that was my first year with the wheelchair group. And McDonald's was a disaster because they weren't ready for opening in Moscow at the time. And I don't think Moscow was ready for them either. So in any event, there were queues for McDonald's and the food was disaster completely. And the food in general wasn't that great in Moscow, at least, but not for us anyway. So at that time, Arinta, or the Irish duty-free people, opened the place under this hotel where we were staying. And that was kind of a saving grace because I was able to buy some things there like mayonnaise. Buy mayonnaise? Well, when we get up in the morning and go down to the breakfast table, all we could see was big bowls of hard-boiled eggs. Myself and an old lady from Kerry, we put a lot of those into a plastic bag and bring them with us in a jar of mayonnaise. At 11 o'clock, when we'd be out doing the various walking about, we'd stop and have a little picnic, which got us through the day. And we got back maybe in the evening to see what food would be on the menu. Then, of course, when we got back in the evening, by usually 4:35 o'clock, we would all hit the bar for relaxed refreshments. And as soon as we arrived there at the bar at that hour of the evening, a flood of prostitutes would come into the hotel bar. And I mean, they were everywhere. If you looked, they were right beside you. And we, of course, had to get chatting to them all that. And there were very nice girls and very good-looking girls, but they were basically school teachers by day, or maybe a government job, like maybe working in the post office. So you're working in the post office in the morning, you're a whore by night, basically. So it was double jobbing anyways for the girls, and our crew had loads of chit-chat and fun and interaction with them. And cheap vodka was common as well. Lots of cheap vodka and lots of hookers, okay? You might say, what a trip. Well, okay. And back then you could get 2 lesbian hookers, form an act for like $50, I guess, yeah. So I'm going to move on from that story. That was 92. Let's see where I bring you next. So that was Russia in 92. And then in 93, we did a tour of Jordan. Capital of Jordan is Amman. It's a beautiful country. And we did a lot of sightseeing there. Aqaba is a beautiful beach. And we spent some days there. We also went to Petra, which is a city way buried under the desert. It was probably only discovered maybe a few years before that. I think there was a lot of film going on there, maybe Lawrence of Arabia and stuff like that. So Jordan was an interesting one, to say the least, and shopping and food and so forth. And the hotel where we stayed in Aqaba was very, like literally on the desert and beautiful, beautiful scenery. So there was a group of Bedouins having a sing-song and smoking not too far from the front of the hotel one night. And I had my drink in a plastic cup, probably juice, orange juice maybe, whatever. And I went out to join them and on the sand with them. And they were having a sing-song in a circle. And the dogs were howling and the moon was beautiful. And it was really, really like very nice. And as each guy in the group sang a song, they would all applaud him, you know. And then I didn't realize that this sing-song is going around in a circle. And when it came to me, they looked at me to say, it's your turn. And I thought, and what am I, an invited guest that I didn't know? So then I knew I had to sing a song. I'm not much of a singer, but I thought of a song sung by Daniel O'Donnell. And the song is called I've an Aged Mother 10,000 Miles Away. It's kind of a sad song about a young man who's far away, I would say, and reminiscing about his mother being so far away and she's in bad health. So I closed my eyes and I gave it my best shot. And I sang it very slowly and I put a lot of emotion into it. And then I finished. And when I finished, they all gave me... Well, I was impressed, but I'm only telling you guys because there's no one else to tell it to. And who else would believe me? So that was, I guess, Jordan, Israel. Petra is very interesting, was in the news recently, because when we walked through the caves and down below, we could see different civilizations where water was channeled down, water being very important in the desert. So that's reminiscent of a podcast I did with Seamus Caulfield about the Neo 5000, the cage of fields, okay? I'll come back to Seamus again in a moment. I touch on other stuff I did for Mother Hubbards. Moving along nicely, we went to Malaysia in 1998, and it was Easter time again, and this coincided with the Good Friday Agreement, the peace agreement in Northern Ireland and Ireland combined. And there's George Mitchell and Bill Clinton and Gerry Adams, Mo Molan, and everyone that was involved in the peace process that was achieved in at the time. So we fly from Dublin to London to get to Gatwick and to get on Malaysian Airlines. So I'm sitting beside a friend of mine, Padre Dude, who plays banjo, and he's on the trip. It's good fun, and another guy. So we're just after taking off in the plane, and Padre says something's up. The plane is going the wrong way. I wouldn't know much about aviation, but he says, no, he's going the wrong way. And then the fasten your seatbelt sign came on, blink, blink. And then the little stewardesses from Malaysian Airlines, obviously, are walking up and down, and they're going, seatbelt. Check your seatbelt. And if they kept doing this, check your seatbelt, check your seatbelt. And then we realized something is radically wrong. And the pilot came over the intercom and he says, we're flying back to London, Gatwick, for technical reasons. Technical reasons? So at the back of the plane, some of the Irish ladies were sitting in the back, I guess, and they must have heard some noise or something. So what he did to save you waiting for it is he took off like too steep, and then he tore this part, the tail of the plane, on the runway, leaving a big hole in the back of the plane. So really and truly, that plane would never have made a 13, 14-hour flight from London Gatwick to Kuala Lumpur. For landing a plane, this is some knowledge for you guys that are into aviation. You have to dump all the fuel, because you cannot land the plane fully loaded with fuel, because then cause the explosion. So he dumped the fuel, I guess, out over the Thames River in London, and that took a good 45 minutes. So we're going around in circles over London and getting rid of the fuel. And the Irish ladies in the back of the plane, well, let's say you can hear a lot of noise of the rosary beads, and you can hear the Our Father being recited many times, and the Hail Mary being recited. And now everyone's getting a little anxious heading back to London. So when we're coming back into London, we see the fire engines, about 10 or 12 of them. We see the British police, Scotland Yard. Now bear in mind, this is the day of the Good Friday Agreement. So people are wondering if this is like a bomb, terrorist thing to upset the Good Friday Agreement or whatever the case may be. So the pilot lands on the tarmac on the runway safely, and the police and Scotland Yard, they get on the plane and they arrest the pilot. Okay? And you might say, why arrest the pilot? But it seems in aviation law, I guess under Malaysian aviation law, pilot error is considered a criminal act. So away that poor guy goes. Now we're asked to disembark. And when we're disembarking, the police tell us not to look back. And you know when someone tells you not to look back, what do? Yeah, you look back. So we see that the arse of the plane is half gone. We see some wires hanging out of it, and it doesn't look good. Our luggage is kept. I don't know what that was about, because clearly if there was a bomb in it, there'd be no luggage. And we're escorted back into the Gatwick Airport waiting area. And then Seamus Thompson was the head of the wheelchair, then came to me. I was appointed walk leader for that year. So Seamus said we'll be meeting later on. I'll expect you to say a few words. I said, well, just some start to the trip, you know. And then we were assigned to different hotels all around London. There was 80 of us in the group. So it was, I guess, let me see who was with me. Rose from Sligo was a disability, she has a walking cane. And Marty from Oma was a strong northern accent, and I think maybe Padre was with us as well. So we get to this fancy hotel, not really like snobby hotel, you know, like really expensive hotel. But I said, look, we're alive. We're happy to be alive, you know, and we're here, and hopefully we'll get out tomorrow. Whoever the tour operator was, they gave us £15 for socks and jocks. But when we get to the hotel bar, I don't know what we did to check in because we didn't have any luggage. We made the best of a bad situation. So I went up to the bar to buy a drink for Rose and Marty. I think I ordered a pint of ale for myself, pint of ale for Padre probably. I think Rose had a glass of wine. And I knew Marty from previous trips. I knew them all from previous trips. And Marty always drank Remy Martin, brandy. So the bartender was wearing a bow tie and he looked a bit, you know, distant. So I ordered it around and he said, that'll be £18, please. So I gave him the £18. Now back to the table. We're still chatting about how lucky we were because the plane would never have made it to Malaysia. And now we're here back. I says, damn it, you know, we'll get our act together and we'll see what they're doing tonight. And if plane goes tomorrow, we will all go tomorrow. And Rose was a sweetheart. She had a huge heart of gold. And she said, you're right, John. She said, come up and help me by the next round at the bar because she had a limp and a walking stick. So I went up with Rose to the bar, and it's 2 pints ale came around, the wine and the Martin. I didn't hear Rose saying to the bartender. The measure in London is very small for like a whiskey or a shot, And she asked him, I could hear her saying something like, that wouldn't wet her lips, put another one in it. Well, he put another one in it, and I wasn't paying attention. And then I heard him say £24. I went back down to Marty, who was more travelled and versed than all of us. I said, Marty, I said, I don't know, something's wrong. Charged me £18, and he charged Rose £24. And Marty wasn't going to be beaten by a Brit. But that way, come with me to the bar, up to the bar. And she called the barman aside. And she said, how come this gentleman was charged £18 and the other lady was charged £24? So he was annoyed. So he went to the cash register and he totted up and totted up and totted up. And then he realised that the second brandy in the glass, and hence the additional price. And that would have been fair enough. We could have all said we were sorry for the mistake on both sides. Well, it was our side, actually. But he said, if you people can't afford to be staying in this hotel, maybe you should be staying in another hotel. Now, if that wasn't an insult on the day of the Good Friday. Well, Marty, that says she lit into him, and she said, you know what, she said, you are right, she said. If that plane had to do an emergency landing at Gatwick, we'd be halfway over the world to Malaysia, rather than being in this hotel. We're not here by choice. If we had a choice, we would not be here. So well done to you, Marty, on that one. So that night, we had our dinner all together. I gave the speech, and I said the flight was going to be going the following morning from Gatwick, and yes, definitely we should all go. Some people were nervous. What's the chance of a plane having to do an emergency landing? I convinced them all that we'd go, and we left and flew for Kuala Lumpur the following day and got there and had a great trip in Kuala Lumpur, and the other sightseeing tours going on. The following day we were walking in a jungle area, beautiful country, beautiful people, and Marty, my friend from Oma, because it was the weekend of the Good Friday Agreement, she had a little Irish flag, green, white and gold, about this size maybe, and she's waving it as we're walking through the jungle. And a monkey or a chimpanzee swung down from a tree. This was bizarre. And he just snapped it off her. And he went all the way up to the top of a high tree. And however, he was able to wave the flag from up there and then leave it up there, right? And Marty said to me, John, you better go up and get the flag. I says, no, Marty, I'm doing enough. I'm walk leader. I'm not a tree climber. But we had a great trip. And then I usually wait on a week after that. So I went down to Singapore on an old train. And that was a lot of fun too. So our next trip, I guess, was to South Africa in 1999. And that's a long flight too, probably 13, 14 hours flight. And Cape Town, Table Mountain, Robbin Island in South Africa. So wine country, of course. We got to visit an ostrich farm. I didn't realize that so many feathers come from ostriches. A huge industry itself. Table Mountain is absolutely beautiful. It's a hard climb. That was 99. So I climbed up with everybody else, of course, and then got the cable car back down. Sometimes coming down a mountain is hard. The mountain itself is absolutely eye-catching, and does look like a table, so it's flat on the top. And then sometimes in the evening time, if you got like a low cloud, it would look like the table had a tablecloth over it. And locals would refer to that as a tablecloth over the table, hence Table Mountain. So our trip into, we'll show you that ticket I have for Robbin Island, where I've left, to Nelson Mandela's prison, and indeed some of the photographs with the prisoners. The ex-prisoners are the tour guides or the tourist groups to Robbin Island. The Robbin Island itself, out from Cape Town, is not too many miles, but the water seemed very choppy, and it looked dangerous, and it did look like an ideal place for a prison. So other things we did in South Africa, the usual sightseeing and the usual tours and the usual stuff and all that we would do with the group in general. So Robbin Island, here is my ticket to Robbin Island in that time. And here's a picture of me beside prisoner number 2, who was Nelson Mandela's prison mate, I guess, for want of a better word. And here he is again, leading the whole group. Very nice chap, may I say. Some prisoners are and some prisoners aren't. And here was a plaque on the wall of his speech written by Nelson Mandela. I'd love to read it for you, but my eyesight is failing me today a little bit. Anyways, moving on from there to China. So we went to China with the wheelchair group in April 2000, and we got into Beijing, which was the capital, as you all well know. And the usual sites, Tiananmen Square, the Great Wall of China. I'll put up some photographs later on about that. And Summer Palace, Temple Heaven, Forbidden City, Lama Temple, Terracotta Warriors, and all that. So moving along, food, absolutely excellent, of course, as you would expect. There was a lot of smog in the city at the time, and taxis were difficult because of the language. I don't speak Chinese, apart from Ni Hao, which means how are you, or as we say in Gaelic, K will do. and stuff like that. My roommate for most of the trips was a guy called Martin, and we actually were pretty okay as roommates go, and good friends as well. And he still is a good friend, Martin. Now, Martin doesn't drink, he doesn't smoke. I like to go for a few drinks every evening to the hotel bar or whatever other bars are around and mingle around with whoever the other volunteers are in the group, or indeed even meet whoever local people or other people that are there visiting. But Martin, let's say, has other vices. And nothing wrong with that. I'm no man for gossip, but you probably want to know. Yeah, he likes women. That's okay. That's a healthy thing in a man, I guess. And I'm there one morning, getting up early. I'm in the shower. I'm getting ready for the day. And it's about 8 o'clock in the morning. And I hear the doorbell ring to the hotel room. I'm there with just a towel wrapped around me. I open the door, and there's a little Chinese woman there. And she looks at me like I'm amazing. Well, I was, I guess. Maybe still am. And she goes, Martin. I'm like, no, I'm not Martin. But she's trying to convince me that I am Martin. I said, no, I'm not Martin. And she has a piece of paper in her hand, about the size of a business card. And on it is the room number, Martin, and 8 o'clock, right? And then I put 2 and 2 together. You don't need to be Columbo for this one. Like when Martin is in his bed and he's asleep. I hit him on the shoulder. I said, Martin. He woke up, blurry-eyed, and he goes, what? I said, did you order a Chinese takeaway? He said, what? I said, did you order a Chinese takeaway? He said, what time is it? I said, it's 8 o'clock in the morning. Oh, fuck her, he said. I told her 8 o'clock in the evening. And I realized that he would know the time that I was out every evening to do his business, which was fair enough. I said, well, what do you want to do? Will I send her away or send her in? We kind of scratched his head and he figured 8 o'clock in the morning. I'll send her in, he said. I said, okay, so I put my clothes on. I said, I'm going down for breakfast. I'll be back up in an hour. I said, make sure you got your business done. And make sure she doesn't steal any of my shit over there. I said, pointing to my bed. It's amazing how you think negative of somebody that you'd never even met. Well, I think she wants to steal something. He said, Martin, he's like, John, you're always cranky in the morning. I said, yeah, sometimes. And he said, I'm going down. He said, John, will I turn the way down for you? I said, Martin, I don't want your leftovers, please. I'll barely be able to digest my breakfast. But Martin, I guess, had his fun. And then we got up that day and then we went to the Great Wall of China. So our next trip was in the year 2001. And that year the trip was to Thailand. I mean, the Wheelchair Association were great for different countries every year. And a good way to see the world, I guess. And, you do your fundraising, your volunteer. You have to help the people in chairs, obviously, and do whatever, is needs to be done. So we get London, Bangkok this time, and long flights, I guess, 13, 14 hours on that. What the hell, who cares? All for a good cause. We get to Thailand, and you think, when some people think of Thailand, good food, friendly people, and of course, sex. So our tour operator, different countries we would go to, like for example, I forgot to mention when we were in Moscow, they organized tickets for Swan Ballet, going back to Moscow for a moment briefly. And we get back in that evening. Now, we should have got all dressed up, like black tie, ladies' nice gowns, to go to Swan Lake. But we're 80 Irish people, women and men, out walking all day, doing our thing, fundraising, and come home that evening, and some of us maybe no shower, out in the same t-shirt we wore all day. By the way, sponsored t-shirts for the walkers, same colours so we wouldn't lose each other. So we got the best seats in the house for Swan Lake, about 3 rows from the front. And the row behind us looks like it's all oligarchs, like Russian politicians from the Kremlin and their wives, like fur coats, expensive suits and coats and coats. And here we are in what you might call less than casual. I mean, we must have looked like the riff-raff of the world, I guess. And that's not bad enough. We're not actually ballet crowd. Well, I know I'm not. And a bit into watching these legs going up, legs coming down, guys in fucking tights, girls this way, girls that way, and music that would literally put you to sleep. Well, you know what happened. We all fell asleep. Within 20 minutes into Swan Lake, I mean, we're barely off the shore. I look over and everyone is snoring in my group. And snoring must be some kind of a contagious thing. But then I started snoring. And the politician behind me, whoever the hell he was, he's hitting me on the shoulder. And I look over, we're all snoring. I figure like all of us were not doing anything good for the enjoyment of these Russians, I don't know how that ends. I'm sure we left early. Delighted, I think. I'd rather go for a shot of vodka at that point. So now I'm back in Thailand with you again. Okay, sorry, brought you on a trip there, but now we're back in Thailand. And those old women I told you that, not old women, but Irish women, like Irish gossips. Like you heard of the 3 gossips from Donegal, 3 women. They were always together as 3. There would never be 2 because the other one would think that they were talking about her, you know. Well, we had some of those on the trip to Thailand, except it was more than three, but maybe it was five. And they have this other quality. If there was a sale on in Macy's, they'd nearly jump over you to get to the front, or just to beat the queue. So the tour group this time put on an evening in Chiang Mai in Thailand, and yes, it was a sex show, but not just any sex show. Okay, it was a gay sex show in a club. I guess culture, you want to call it, or color culture. Okay, but these women, these old ladies going in, they wanted to get the best table and the best seats, and they went right up to the front table, as close as this. Well, close to this, to the stage. Okay, and then drinks are served, I guess, and we're back somewhere. But you can see enough. Come on. Anyways, the performance show starts, and it's 4 or 5 young men on the stage, and they're all dressed in like painters' suits, like painters' outfits. So they start, and it's all done to music and choreographed. And the scene starts, and they pretend they're like painting and rolling, and painting this way and rolling that way. But then we know what's going to happen soon. So one guy is halfway up the ladder. The other guy's about here. This guy opens the zip of his painting suit. This guy's still painting, and let's say the performance is about to begin. So this guy is here. This guy is here. The zip is opened, and this guy is given an oral sex. Okay? Don't forget, my ladies, near the front. They have the best view of that. So this goes on, more music, and this guy is getting very excited. I mean, as the music chimes up, and he gets more excited. Don't forget, my ladies. You listen carefully, and then it gets near climax, and the guy is given the oral sex. Decides that his mouth is getting apart. He decides that he should finish him off. But when he finishes him off, the aim is for it. You got it. The front audience. Yes, it landed there, right on the table where my 4 friends, they only go over gossip, were sitting. I guess they got. Okay, I forgot to mention when I was in China, I went for a massage, as one does. Good thing to do. Not very hard. Massage is good and healthy in my head. Well, the difference in China is they have a lot of blind people giving massages, okay? So I decided to go there for a massage. So what's that experience like? Well, it's a bit like a communist hospital, number one. They're extremely professional, the blind people doing the massage. And blind massage parlors are pretty common in China. Also to note that there is a high percentage of blind people in China. And going back to the 50s, I think this was the way of the government doing something that could be made useful, I guess. Yeah, I'll get there in the evening and get into the place, and it does look like a communist hospital. So all the therapists, there's a lot of therapists there, are wearing white coats, just like doctors. So I check in, and the lady brings me down and gets me the therapist and the massage, and I must admit was very, very good. And I said, everyone in the place is blind, except for cashier, of course. That's how you pay on the way out.